Hello. I'm Haley Blackburn, one of the student success coaches in the Student Success Resource Center. And so today on this live with the SSRC, we are going to be talking about different ways to help you prepare for finals. So finals week is going to start May 4th, and so that is coming up definitely quick. And while in some ways it feels far away, right? Where did April even go? Now is actually the time to really start collecting your materials, beginning that study process, so that way you can go into that finals week hopefully feeling more confident, more prepared, and more, just ready and like you've had the time and the space to really engage. And so the first thing, and kind of a general principle, it really is cramming. We've all been there, we've all done that. And for some types of, tests, some subjects, maybe, for some people, it works a little bit better. But generally speaking, cramming is not going to be as good as if you spread out your learning and your engagement with the materials over, multiple days, smaller sections, more time. And one reason why spreading it out just over, again, more days, smaller increments, is that we're re-engaging with that knowledge sort of more often rather than just sort of trying to cram it all into our brain at once. And so you can kind of think about breaking up your studying for each subject into, half hour, 45-minute blocks, maybe a couple times a day or at least once a day, for the week before. So kind of the end of this week over the weekend, start getting everything together, reviewing your materials for 30 minutes once a day. And then when we get into, that it's dead week or the week right before finals, maybe you up it to twice a day, especially if it's a class that you feel a little bit less confident in. And so kind of spreading it out and getting your brain to re-register can help you just engage in a new way, a little bit more focused and a little bit stronger as you're trying to really review and remember the information. So definitely would encourage, again, spreading it out, starting now. And so the focus, again, of today's little live is just to give you some ideas and some inspiration when it comes to studying. And, finals are going to look different this semester as we're remote and we're online, and the second half, right? Engaging and learning the materials and concepts has been different and in many ways, and for many of us, more challenging than normal. And so since finals are going to be a little bit different, now could also be the time to add a little bit different study technique onto your study schedule. So that's really going to be the focus. We're going to start with a way to kind of keep your flashcard a little bit fresher. Flashcards are a great study tool to have, especially if your test is going to be focused on recall. So if there's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of concepts, if you think it might be something like multiple choice, then flashcards might be a tool to help you learn and help you use that. But we want to, again, refresh it, find new ways to engage so that our brains were processing the information in a little bit different way each time. So that's going to be number one. Second, we're going to go through prepping for essays. I know a popular finals sort of format, especially since we're online, might be some sort of final essay or paper that you'll be able to, get the prompt for, write over a few days, and then turn it in during finals time. And so we'll definitely just go over a couple little writing tips, things you might try when you're outlining as you're preparing your notes, so that way, you feel ready, confident, and have all the information and materials you're going to need to write a strong essay. And then the third, we're just going to kind of go over some ideas for managing your final projects if you have, some big pieces left to finish before finals week. And we do have a worksheet for that available. You can just click the link in our Instagram bio and it will take you to some of our success guides. One of them is a project management template, so you can really organize and track what is left and what needs to be done on your final projects. Hooray! And so again, all of these are inspiration. It's a starting place. We definitely expect you to take these ideas and strategies and adapt them to, right, your level of confidence with the material, your sort of the learning strategies that have worked the best for you in the past, the format of your exam, and just what's going to work for your lifestyle. So let's start with flashcards. So the basic flashcard, right, if we're doing it, we want to put maybe the term on the front side, and then you flip it over and there'll be the answer on the back side, the definition, maybe the context, whatever it is. And so that's kind of in the most basic form. You could do an actual physical flashcard, or you could do it online. There's definitely digital flashcard formats as well. It really depends on the materials that you have or that you want available. I always went with physical flashcards, and I like to have physical ones for two reasons. First, the act of actually writing out the information on your flashcard is one way to engage with the materials and actually learn. And so when you're looking over your notes, right, just reading them, it's so easy to just look and not actually read and process the material. So if you're writing out your flashcards by hand, sort of the act of handwriting can help us process. That's one reason. And the second reason I always liked physical flashcards more is because I can sort them, right, into piles, whereas the digital ones, it kind of depends on the platform and application, but that process is a bit more hit or miss. And so when you say sort your flashcards, what I mean is instead of keeping your deck of flashcards in the same order, and every time you pick them up, you're just like running through the exact same ones, we get into that sort of habit and routine, and our brain is no longer actively sort of studying and processing, but instead is sort of like, oh yeah, we start to know and anticipate what's coming up. So instead of flipping through like that and just front to back, instead take it, say, okay, here's flashcard 1, concept, if you got it right or not. So if you got it right, and most importantly, why you got it right, that you feel like you really understand it, then we're going to put that in one pile. Now, if you got it right, but you guessed, and you have to be honest with yourself, like we all know, if we, guessed a little bit, or we aren't really sure why we got that answer right, you're going to put it in a second pile. And then if you, didn't get that answer right on your flashcard, put in a third pile. And so at the end of your studying, you can look through your piles and have a really clear, visual of, wow, okay, I have this many right, this many that I'm not sure about, and this many wrong. And every time you continue to study, you'll see the piles shift. And hopefully the more times you do it, you'll see your I got this right and I feel confident in why it was right pile getting larger, your wrong pile getting smaller. And now that you have these piles, you can focus more energy on the wrong pile or the guess pile. So that's kind of one way to keep your flashcards, a little bit more just like fresh, is don't just flip through a stack, actually go through, take the time to visualize what's wrong, what's right, what's kind of right. Cool. That's one way. The second way to make your flashcards work a little bit better for you is instead of just having, the concept or the term, and then like the definition on the backside, try coming up with scenarios or applications. So you might actually have like 2 sets of flashcards. Okay, and so your first set for each term will just define it. Because if we don't know the definition or the meaning, it's really difficult to feel confident in that we know what's going to be on the test, what's going on. And so you'll have that first set, but then actually make a second set that's really based on examples. So you might pull out examples that you have from your notes that your professor, put on the slides or your book talked about, and then think of your own examples too. And so this kind of helps refresh it by making us think about the terms in a different way, in a more applied way. And so if you have the example from the book, then you also should think of an example from your own life that helps you really understand how that's going to process. So that's kind of tip number 2. Don't feel, limited by just terminology, definition. Instead, definitely think terms and then applications of it. You could even, draw doodles or comic strips on your flashcards, anything to help you really understand how this terminology applies out in the world, out in life, out in something that helps to relate to you. And so then, kind of third tip to help refresh, we're going to spin around here. Since we're all right at home, we might, have something in our closet like a board game. So what you could try to do, grab out one of your board games. We have Monopoly out. And make it literally into more of a game. Again, so you're engaging in a little bit different way. So what you would do is with your board game, right? Take a sticky note or have your flashcards out maybe, and stick it on, have them all around. You'd want to fill the board with all of your flashcards. And then as you're rolling your dice, just like when you're playing the game with all your roommates, right? You roll your dice, you get your little guy or gal, and landed on topic 1. Right now, as part of the game, right, you need to define the topic, and define the topic. Tell your roommates or your space mates, family, whoever maybe you're playing this board game with, teach them about the topic, right? So instead of just studying with ourselves, because again, it's really easy for us to say like, yeah, I know what that means, but then not engage as thoroughly. Now you've turned your learning into a social event, right? And being social is another really great strategy to just learn. So as you're working your way around this board game, it's a different atmosphere, a different way to study, and actually focus on teaching the people that you're playing with the concept that you just landed on. And same, right? If they land on that topic, then they can try to teach or explain kind of that topic back to you. And that's an opportunity for you to hear it in different ways. And then you can, correct them or sort of teach them on what maybe they got wrong, or sort of misunderstood. Maybe they can come up with another scenario or example of what they think that topic is. And that's, again, an opportunity for you to connect the dots with maybe a little bit different perspective. So 3 tips for refreshing your flashcards, right? The first tip was creating actual piles you can visualize and see rather than just flipping through the deck, getting bored, doing it over and over again. So that's, really helpful. Tip 2 was actually putting more scenarios and applications, adding doodles, adding examples from your life, thinking about that podcast you just listened to and how it connects, rather than just having term and definition. And then the third tip to refresh your flashcards was incorporating it into some kind of game that you have at your house. If it's a board game, things like Jenga, we all know how to turn Jenga into different games, and so add the topics into that so you can study in a more social way and help teach the people around you, because explaining and teaching is one of the best ways to really see if we understand and help us process the information. Yeah. And so definitely if you have other ideas or ways that you've studied, especially for a recall-based test where there's a lot of terms and definitions and examples that you're expected to remember, flashcards are great. Let us know what has helped you out so we can share with the community. Definitely just give us a DM or tag us as you're studying for that. So, put you back down over here. The second kind of common exam and final type that we just want to talk a little bit about is going to be writing. So I have a whole folder of writing resources, and we're going to talk a little bit about prepping for these essays and the outlines. So potentially, right, maybe you are just turning in a final paper, you've been working on it for a long time. If that's the case, definitely take the time to create an appointment with the Writing Center, so that way they can just help you with organization, revising, use that resource to ensure that you are confident in your paper and you feel really, really good about it. It's a free resource. You'll be able to submit the draft and they will get you some feedback within 24 hours, or you can also have a video chat with one of the tutors to just help you out. So that's definitely number 1. Now that option might not be available, especially if it's part of like the finals itself. So you'll definitely want to check with, your instructor on that. But if it's not just a paper that you're turning in, but an actual essay exam, right? There's some things you can do to prep and feel confident and be ready for that essay exam on your own as well. So likely, right, you're going to have some sort of prompt or study guide. If not, definitely look back through your notes, be in contact with your instructor, and imagine, like, if you were creating this exam, what kind of questions would you ask an essay question about? And that is a strategy that can work anytime you're studying. Envision yourself making the test. Ask yourself the types of questions you would sort of quiz somebody else on. So once you have the prompt, or at least an idea of what you're going to be writing about, we definitely would recommend starting the outlining process. Now, often there's this kind of association that outlining is extra work, but it doesn't have to be. It is an additional kind of step that you might be doing, but it's a step that's actually going to make the writing process itself that much more efficient, that much more organized and clear. I used to hate outlining, and then I finally found a process of outlining that worked for me, and my papers got a lot better, dramatically better. So if you're not a fan of the formal outline, you can make it a little bit more visual and a little bit more bright and interesting. So for example, I usually call them just like outline maps. Here, I'll flip you around. And so the idea of this outline map, I'll hang it up here, is really thinking about, all the topics that might be asked, and then just getting a really loose outline of it. And so these outline maps, when I do them for papers, take me less than 15 minutes. I kind of make a point. It should be a fast process that you're starting with just to get the ideas down. So let's say, right, your class, maybe it's some sort of media class or history class or something. If you have to do an essay, right, I'm starting with, okay, looking back through my notes, I know that we talked about before the broadcasting era. I know we talked about things like narrative and radio. I know that we talked about when television was invented, cinema, and you keep going through all the topics based on your notes, based on the lectures that connect to the prompt that you think you might want to talk about in your essay. And so I like to write these on sticky notes because then you can move them around as you're seeing kind of how it's going to be organized. And often at the end, you might find that, you might actually find, this topic does not fit kind of in this essay that I'm supposed to write, and you just pull the sticky note off. When I feel really good about all the topics that I definitely want to cover in the little essay or the answer, then I like to tape it down. So you first get your prompt, maybe you have, whether you have several days to write the essay or just several hours, taking the, 10 to 15 minutes to organize your thoughts using sticky notes can really help jumpstart that process and get you thinking about the right thing. Another good kind of step in this process is noting down where in your notes you might find that information. So that way when you get to the writing stage, it's really quick and easy to jump back to that page in the textbook or to your notes. So try the sticky note method. And if sticky notes aren't for you, you could also do it on like a dry erase board. You could use a mirror with dry erase markers. Or, you could definitely use your word processor. And instead of sticky notes, just focus on, the main topics bulleted, just like an outline. Keep it brief, so that way the goal is you can see your whole paper in one page at one glance, so you can really make sure that it's organized and connected. That's kind of like step one. Try doing that. Now, once I have my sticky notes organized, the next thing I like to do is get a little more in depth. And so this kind of phase 2 typically would take me another 20, maybe 30 minutes. So it'd be kind of the second study session in this sort of finals era. Again, if you have a couple, days to turn it in, you could definitely spread them out a little bit. But take a little break after your sticky notes, get a snack, go for a walk, wait a day if you can, then come back. So in this phase, I'm really focused on making sure I have a clear purpose statement, right? And so with your outline and with any essay, it's going to be more organized. It's going to help the reader out if you have this really clear purpose statement there. And so your purpose statement, just following the tenets of strong writing should, let me scooch it a little closer, have something about, an action that you're going to do in the paper, right? So in this case for the paper, I was tracing the evolution of, storytelling technology over the recent century to inform podcast culture. And so having this purpose statement written down then helped me make sure that all of my sections and intros were going to stay focused. And so with your prompt for your final essay, make sure that your purpose statement that you actually write out connects and relates and will answer the question prompt. If you write a sentence, go back to the prompt and realize this doesn't actually address or reflect the prompt in one sentence, and you might want to think about revising it and making sure that you're going to answer the question prompt. So then kind of the next thing after I write out that full sentence, I start to expand on my outline. So this was like the very beginning of my intro. Sometimes I think it's helpful just to get a sentence or two down for that. Again, this isn't necessarily an extra step or extra work in the writing process because I'm actually thinking through what I will literally write in my Word document when I get there. So it's just a quick draft again, getting all my ideas on the page so it stays organized. Then you know, okay, my first real paragraph is going to talk about, and I write out the full sentence that's going to structure that. So the topic sentence. Right? Think back to your English 122 and then your second, LAC writing class. What were topic sentences? What was the purpose of that? We want to keep using good topic sentences and purpose statements. And then I like to have sticky notes again just to help me keep organized of the topics, writing out the topic sentence, sticky note topics I want to cover, topic sentence, and then how am I going to end. So that's kind of phase 2. Again, shouldn't take more. I try not to take more than half an hour on this because it really is getting the thoughts kind of there without sort of burning myself out. We don't want to spend too much time in these early stages, so that way you're more refreshed and ready for the final. So, next stage for more efficient writing. Woo. So this, turned into here, right? So you can see in my intro, I talked about stories offer people mechanisms. That literally became the beginning of my paper. Stories offer people mechanisms to process. So this is why it's not extra work, it's just building. But the next really important things that I like to do is get more into that kind of standard outline. So it might help you, especially if you feel a little bit stuck. Open up your Word document, write that topic sentence and opening that you thought about, and then just write the first sentences, right? And then the two kind of topics you want to cover, and then take a break. Don't try to knock it all out. Instead, go to the next one. Okay, write your topic sentence. What are you going to talk about with that? And again, move on to the next thing, topic sentence, what you want to talk about. Start kind of thinking about your conclusion. And so now that you have your full paper kind of considered and thought about, you can really get more into the writing process, and you might find it a little bit easier and smoother to come back to actually start filling out all the information. So some people, definitely the writing process goes better if you go in a linear. So writing in a more linear style would be, intro and just all the way through, which can definitely work great, especially if you have less time. But I've definitely found that being able to have this sticky note outline, thinking about the topic sentences, and then on my actual Word document, filling in, okay, here's the first sentence of this paragraph, here's the bullet points I know I want to come back to, lets me jump around topics more with what I'm like, I just found this part in my notes and it applies to section 3. I can go in, talk about section 3, cite those sources right then, without worrying about the organization getting lost or missing a transition because I already filled those in. So for your essays, if you have to write an essay for your final project, I would definitely suggest or try using sticky notes or like a dry erase board or something to do a really quick outline, breezing through all your notes, getting the ideas, the big topics that you think you might want to talk about in this paper. Get them all down on paper so you can see them in one page, and it makes it easier to recognize sort of, this makes sense, I should keep this in, this doesn't make sense, here's the citations and the sources I could use. Get all that on a little sticky note page. Then the second step, once you feel really good about the topics, go back through, write your topic sentences and your purpose statement, and make sure that your purpose statement matches whatever prompt your instructor gave you for your test question. Right? If your purpose statement isn't going to speak to or align with the test prompt, you need to figure out what is going to answer your test prompt before you get too much more invested or move forward. And then the third thing is where you actually open up that Word document and start, based on your sticky notes, your topic sentences, start actually writing out the sections. Consider blocking different pieces out, so that way as you are going back through your notes and your textbook and your readings and sources, when you come across something that speaks to a topic in your paper, it's a little bit easier to jump right to that topic, fill in the information, cite your sources, and then come back to different sections. Those would be kind of 3 tips to just try as you are preparing for a final essay and project that you might get in a prompt. Cool. And then the third thing is really just project management. And there's like a lot of ways to do project management. And so if your final is really just based on, turning in a really big project, and maybe you have to, do some sort of presentation. In this case, it would look like a virtual one. We just really recommend use this week and next week, but especially like this week, this weekend, to write out all the things that you still have left on that project, and then try to estimate, right, the amount of time left that it's going to take you to do that. And so, like I said, if you go to the link in our bio, we do have a worksheet really oriented around doing that. But the big things, like if you don't want to go to the worksheet or you don't think there's that many things left, I would actually suggest returning kind of to that sticky note method even. And so pull up first your assignment sheet, right? All of your projects should have some sort of assignment sheet, and they might also be in your syllabus. So definitely check your syllabus, check your assignment sheet, get a highlighter or a marker out, and highlight the different tasks that you are supposed to do to complete the project. And so highlight them, and then make a list of everything that you highlighted, and just start checking off the things that you've already done on the project. And for the things that you haven't done on the project, you definitely are going to want to try to estimate how much time you think it will take for that kind of aspect or task of the project. And then, similar to what we have done in the past, as far as marking out things on the calendar, right? Once you know how much time it's going to take you to finish the last, 5 tasks on your project, you can start to count backwards from the due date, making sure that you give yourself enough half-hour to hour chunks of time to, get it done. And we want to try to spread things out in half-hour to hour chunks, because otherwise burnout definitely happens. And we want to be, fresh, engaging, and sort of working at a higher quality. So if you need to work on this project for 45 minutes, take a break, go eat some food, take a walk around the neighborhood, work on a different subject or a different piece of homework for the next 45 minutes, coming back to it, that can all contribute to our efficiency, our freshness, and sort of re-engaging with that learning. So create your task list, try to figure out how much time, how many days you need to work on it, and then mark that down on your calendar so that way you can create a really strong study schedule and stay organized and stay kind of with it. Can definitely be some helpful things. So that are the SSRC's kind of 3 big ways that you might prep for your finals, to hopefully feel, more confident, more ready, and just engage, right? The whole thing with like our learning process. And definitely in this new online remote scenario, we recognize that there's a lot more on us to create more active ways to engage, because we don't get that nice active level of, being in the classroom, talking to your peers, hearing from your instructor face to face, asking those questions. Those all contribute to a much more active learning environment. Being online kind of inherently makes it a much more passive learning environment. So we have to think a little bit outside the box and find ways to make sure that we're engaging actively with all the information. So just as a quick review, right, as you prepare for finals, continue to be active in your learning. So instead of just rereading over your notes kind of mindlessly, because it's just so easy to look at the page and not actually really read the notes, and especially if you've been rereading your notes a lot, our brain, we know what we're going to say. Like, we do a lot of shortcuts with material we are familiar with. And so rereading the same, note page over and over, your brain's not necessarily going to be engaging as actively. Instead, it's going to be kind of looking ahead, drifting off. So try to get more active as you're reviewing for the final 2 weeks by doing things like creating flashcards. That way you have to process and then output information onto the flashcard. And then when you have your flashcards done, find ways to refresh, and study through creating like board games, trying to, teach the people in your house or your space around you about the concepts. That way you're engaging and being social and learning them in a little bit different way. If you have things like essays, as you're going through your notes, start actually, flagging and marking things that you think you might need to use for that essay. And then put them in a nice visual sticky note outline, so all of your ideas are there and ready for you as soon as you're ready to start writing. And then if you do have a project, right, just make sure that you, on one nice page and then on your calendar, keep track of what tasks are still remaining, how long you think those tasks are going to take, and what schedule you're going to follow. Breaking all of that up into smaller sections and smaller sessions each day, but spread out over more days, so that way you're engaging, you're processing, you're learning the information more and more.